Hey, Pastor Steve Waldron. I hope you're having a great day or night in Jesus. We're looking at some prehistoric men, some finds that have been debunked over the years. I've done some videos from other sources on this. We're using today just kind of as a discussion starter. Great book, Creation versus Evolution by Dr. Arlo Mullenpaugh, Doctor of Science, longtime chemist, Bible college president, instructor, all kinds of stuff. So has Doctor of Science. So let's get started. And so again, thanks for being here. Do check out our other videos as well. So we're on page 82. This is his 27th chapter. This is probably the best introductory book I've ever found on the subject of several of creation science. So why is physical anthropology so heavily influenced by subjective factors? So I'll read a little bit, maybe discuss a little bit. So it says, physical anthropology, the study of human origins, is a field that throughout history has been more heavily influenced by subjective factors than almost any other branch of respectable science. Now I will say, like, he's got a footnote here and this type thing. We're not going to look at that. The field is still begging for empirical confirmation. The pressure for confirmation is so strong that's led to some spectacular frauds. And so let's just look at some of this. Dr. Derek Ager, former president of the British Geological Association, admitted practically every evolutionary story he had learned as a student has now been debunked. And so that's pretty interesting for Dr. Ager to say that. So first is Ramapithecus. The suffix pithecus means ape. This fossil was found in India in 1932. Time Life Books claim that Ramapithecus is now thought by some experts to be the oldest man's ancestors in a direct line. Now, they've found some since this book was written as well. This hominid status is predicated upon a few teeth, some fragments of jaw, and a palate unmistakably human in shape. This idea has been promoted through illustrations showing Ramapithecus routinely walking almost as upright as a man, yet the fossil consists of only jaw and teeth. And you'll find that's kind of very little things are made into something very big as we study this. Most experts now concede that Ramapithecus was merely an extinct form of an orangutan. Orthodontists have shown that the jaw angulation is an unreliable indicator of relative humanness and should not be a determining factor in deciding whether a jawbone is from a human or an ape. There is a large variation in the degree of angulation both within humans and apes, which is obvious by sight. Now we come to Nebraska man. You know, the Nebraska horses have kind of been disproven as well. And this is Hesperothecus Harold Cooki. Field geologist Harold Cook sent a tooth to Henry Fairfield Osborn, director of the American Museum of Natural History, in order to determine the creature to which it had belonged. Osborn and some tooth specialists agreed that it was the first evidence of an anthropoid ape in the Western Hemisphere. They named him Hesperopithecus, ape of the West. It was known as the Nebraska man. I've seen pictures of this, like from 1921, I think. After a period of 4.5 years, the tooth was identified as the tooth of a wild pig. Prior to this expose, it was felt that Nebraska man was halfway between Java man and Neanderthal man, which Neanderthal man very well could just be someone with rickets. Piltdown man. We come to Piltdown man. In 1912, Charles Dawson and A.S. Woodward reported the discovery of an ape-like man in gravel near Piltdown, Sussex, England. Now, before we get into that, I did want to mention, you've probably studied this before too, that so often, not just in this field, but in archaeology, we've done those thousands of podcasts on biblical archaeology. Today was Steve Waldron, that so often a discovery is found right before grant money runs out. It's like, look at what we found, send us another chunk of money to keep going. So that happens. It's just human nature. What they found was a broken fossil skull and a jaw. In 1953, Kenneth Oakley proved that the skull and jaw did not belong to each other. The Piltdown man turned out to be a modern human skull and the jawbone of an ape. These bones laid out been chemically treated to make them look old, and the teeth have been filed down to make them look worn. The forger had filed down the highly custom molars of the orangutan jaw to give the flat appearance of human teeth. Wasn't it one of like Teilhard de Chardin, this Jesuit scientist, author, mystic kind of guy? He did one of these frauds, or was in on it anyhow. The whole thing was a hoax. Piltdown Man British Museum officials protected these fossils from unfriendly inspection, allowing them to mold public opinion for 40 years. This concealment of the evidence is a greater scandal than the original fraud. See Codex Sinaiticus. Peking Man, Sinanthropus. These fossils were found in the 1920s, about 25 miles from Peking, China. The evidence consisted of skulls and teeth. Almost no limb bones. Notice how often it's teeth. After their discovery and description, the original bones were lost between 1941 and 1945. Obviously, there's a world war going on. Some believe that the disappearance of the bones and the concealment of the human remains at the site may have been a cover-up by evolutionists trying to keep belief in Peking Man alive. Others believe it was just a twist of fate. One reconstruction of the skulls was named Nellie. Most of the skulls had been bashed inward in fossil remains of humans, and their tools were found at the site. Peking Man was probably an extinct variety of apes, once hunted and even eaten in China by humans who considered ape brains a delicacy, and in parts of Asia still do, even living anyhow. Australopithecus afarensis. Australopithecus literally means southern ape. In Ethiopia, in 1974, one Australopithecus afarensis skeleton was discovered about 40% complete by Donald Johanson. He named it, and this is maybe the most famous of all these, Lucy, after a girl mentioned in a Beatles song, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Maybe you have to be on LSD to believe this. Everyone agrees that from the neck up, Lucy was a gorilla-like. Also from the neck down, nearly every feature was non-human. Lucy was not a human ancestor. At best, she was a form of an extinct ape. At worst, she was a combination of 2 or 3 species. She's still touted as one of the best evidences of human evolution. Today, these animals are no longer considered ancestors of man, but a variety of extinct apes. Next, we come to Java Man, Pithecanthropus erectus. In the 1890s, Eugene Du Bois went to the island of Java to discover the missing link and prove the theory of evolution. He found a skull cap, a thigh bone, and several teeth. I'm sure you guessed that already. This group of fossils, called Java Man, Du Bois, only allowed a few privileged persons to see the fossils. Also, he did not reveal that he found the thigh bone about a year later, about 45 feet from the skull cap. Picture that. Wasn't like they were buried together. Eugene Du Bois was so obsessed with findings of remains of ancient man that for 30 years he failed to make known the fact that close to the time he collected the famous Java Man fragments, he had also found 2 human skulls, Wadjak skulls, in similar sediments. The missing link status of Java Man would have suffered if he had simultaneously revealed the Wadjak skulls. Later research has shown the leg bone is almost unquestionably from a human, and the skull cap is very ape-like. Du Bois announced at the end of his life that the fossils were not the remains of an ape man, and the skull belonged to a giant gibbon. Once again, a massive fraud. Lastly, we come to the very famous Neanderthal man in 1856. Workmen recovered a partial skeleton from a cave near Neander, Germany. Evolutionists seized upon Neanderthal man as a missing link between apes and man. Neanderthal was reconstructed to show how he walked with a stooped stance with a head set far forward. This appearance gave the man the characteristic ape-like look to lead support for Darwin's theory. It's now felt that Neanderthal man was fully human, suffering from bone deformities that may be called by diseases, some would say rickets. Maurice Tillet was a professional wrestler from France, nicknamed the Angel. Tillet's picture shows that his head and his face were very large, his hands and feet were thickened, and his torso broadened. One night, Professor Carlton Kuhn and other members of the anthropological department of Harvard went to the wrestling match in Boston. After the match, they invited the Angel to Harvard to be measured scientifically. Tillet's measurements were identical to Neanderthal man, and Maurice Tillett was not prehistoric, but a highly educated and cultured individual. Apparently, he suffered from an endocrine disorder which resulted in over-functioning of the pituitary gland. If one would have found his bones fossilized, many have been thought as a Neanderthal man. As academic dean, over 20 years in 3 different colleges, I've had the responsibility of ordering the caps and gowns for the graduates. In 3 years, I have observed a tremendous variety of shapes and sizes of heads. One young man had the head as large, he had to cut his cap and sewed a piece of matching material in the gap. In other years, the skulls of these graduates would have been lined up. Some would try to show an evolutionary pattern. They were all living in the same time period. Hoaxes of ancient man. God's good. He created us just like he said in his word. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.